Lobese is hosting a media briefing at the Admiralty House in Simons Town. The aim of this media briefing is to address issues pertaining to the South African Navy and the Navy Festival. Members of the public are reminded to use the park and ride facilities that is available at Fishhook Beach and Fishhook Sports Field. Please do note that Metro Rail's trains are also offered till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Do stay with us and follow this link. We'll definitely learn more about what the Chief of the South African Navy has to say on the state of the Navy. I am Lieutenant Sindisiwe Maja from the South African Navy.
So that we cannot interrupt the briefing. We shall follow the following protocol, acknowledging all principles, and then we will go to the address by the representative of the City of Cape Town. After that, I will do further announcements, and then we shall take question and answer section, go through question and answer session. After which we will do 1 or 2 interviews, and breakfast will be served. Shall we call the chaplain to opening with prayers?
Acknowledging Chief of the South African Navy, Vice Admiral M. Lobese, all protocol observed. According to the Constitution of our country, everyone has a right to freedom of religion. And at this particular moment, I would love to acknowledge all religions that are here and allow me to continue to open this gathering with the scripture that we get it in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. We only read verses 7. Love bears all things, regardless of what comes, believes all things, looking for the best in each one, hopes all things, remaining steadfast during difficult times, endures all things without weakening. Brothers and sisters, this morning, allow me to give you these words that without love, there is nothing we can achieve. Love helps us to achieve greater goals together. Because if we love one another, we do not judge one another. We are there for one another. When we love one another, regardless of the race, the gender, ethnicity, but what is important, it is love, because love, we see the creation of God in all of us. As a collective leadership of the South African Navy, let us love one another and hold each other's hands through difficult times. We shall win all together at the same time. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come together today in this grand assembly, bound by a common purpose and a shared sense of unity. We acknowledge your presence and are grateful for the blessings that have brought us here. As we gather together, we are reminded of the importance of community, fellowship, and the pursuit of common goals. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. May this gathering be a testament to our shared commitment to you, our Lord and Savior. May it serve as a source of inspiration and strength for each of us and for the greater good. We also remember those who could not be with us today and those facing adversity. May they find comfort and support in their time of need. Bless this gathering, the conversation and connection that will take place, and the bonds that will be strengthened here. May our collective efforts lead to positive outcomes and make a meaningful difference in our world. All this pray in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. As you also bless the food at this particular moment, Lord, bless the meal that we are going to get to sustain our bodies and remind us of many blessings in our lives. And you guide our mealtime conversation and steer our hearts to your purpose of our lives. Bless our physical and spiritual appetites to honor you in all we do. All this in the name of God. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Chief of the South African Navy, Vice Admiral Lobese, Council Lyle Koch, the representative of the City of Cape Town, Deputy Chief of the South African Navy, Rear Admiral Shana, Chief Director Maritime Strategy, Rear Admiral Commander, Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Makanya, Flag Officer Fleet, Rear Admiral Matsani, Flag Officers, Senior Chief Warrant Officer Warrant Molife, taking this opportunity to highlight the development, strategic issues of the Navy, and to highlight the upcoming events out of South Navy, seeing that South Africa is a maritime nation. As you know, South African Navy plays a vital role in terms of maritime security and the prosperity of our waters. These breakfasts give us a unique opportunity to interact and share stories and reflect on the work that keeps our maritime space protected. Without further ado, please allow me to call upon the Chief Representative of the City of Cape Town, Councillor Lyle Koch, to address us. Thank you.
Yes, good morning everybody, good morning, and welcome, thank you for having me here, Chief Vice Admiral Lobesi, Deputy Chief Rear Admiral Moshana, Chief Director Maritime Strategy, Rear Admiral Nkomondi. Thank you and congratulations on your new appointment. Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Makanya, congratulations on your new position. And Flag Officer Fleet, Rear Admiral Motsani, who is going to be working closely with you. Welcome. I look forward to working with you, sir. Congratulations and welcome back after a long hiatus of we didn't have the Navy Festival. It is really good to have you back. We have missed you, and it is good to know it didn't happen overnight. To see today, I see the chief last night had his dancing shoes on, but the deputy mayor was not so good. I think he's embarrassed and he's hiding. But it was really a fantastic event last night, so that was really good. The Navy Festival, the Dockyard Concert was a really great event, and I think it is the highlight of the year for us down here. Today the sun is out and the wind has dropped and it feels like a new life. We've just come through this very wet, cold winter, all these periods, and today really feels positive. I think in this Navy and in the town and in the city, there is a feeling of new life, and spring is here, and hopefully this is going to be the start of something new. It does not just happen. As we know, this event took a lot of work, and it is a lot of, this town is looking good, and the Navy's spruced up, and everybody's looking fresh and new. And the city and the mayor are very happy to support this event and have it back. And they've displayed this by providing about over 800,000 rands worth of services, traffic, law enforcement, solid waste, fire. So this is really a collaboration for these for this event. A completely free festival, bringing the Navy closer to the people so that it truly becomes a people's Navy. I think this is really what the Navy embodies, is having an event like this, and it brings the people here. Personally, as the ward councillor of the Simonstown, I'm privileged to have the Navy in my ward. It is really the most important organisation that is in my ward and in the sub-council, and I look forward to continuing the excellent relationship that I have with the Flag Office of Refit and the Flag Office of West Simonstown Naval Base. And we face the same day-to-day challenges. And I'm not going to mention the baboons alone. There are more issues than the baboons. But we will face them together. I look forward to really continuing my relationship with the Navy and the excellent one we've had, and working together on some of the challenges that we've had in getting there. And this is a symptom of that good vibrations and the good feeling that is now coming over the city and the whole country. So good luck on your event. We wish you well on a successful festival, and we pray for fair winds and good weather. We do not want a strong southeaster this time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is with that great pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning, Chief of the South African Navy, Vice Admiral Lobese, who will share with us the Navy's vision, strategic updates, and the role the Navy plays in ensuring the security of South African maritime interests. Please join me with a round of applause in welcoming you.
Thank you, Program Director. Am I audible now?
Yes.
I'm not that short. So. Thank you. Ward Councillor for Simonstown and Sub-Council Chair, Councillor Leil Kok, Deputy Chief of the Navy, Rear Admiral Mhlana, Chief Director Maritime Strategy, Rear Admiral Ngomonde, Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Makanya, Flag Officer Fleet, Rear Admiral Matsane, members of the Navy Command Council, members of the Fleet Command, officers, Master-at-Arms of the Navy, Senior Chief Warrant Officer Molefe, warrant officers, non-commissioned officers, to our guests of honor, our friends from the media, to all the other members of the Navy, as well as other South Africans watching the live stream of the State of the Navy address. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you here today to the home of the South African Navy, Simonstown. It is also my great honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to the start of the famous Navy Festival. This event has always been a highlight in the calendar of Cape Town, and this year promises to be a most memorable event. Before I delve into more specific information about the Navy Festival, please allow me the opportunity to give you a strategic glimpse of the state of the SA Navy. I must point out at the outset that the aim of today's briefing is not to delve into too much detail, as this will keep us here for a long period of time. I would rather like to invite you to save your questions until the end of my address, and then you are welcome to ask them. Should you still require more information, you are welcome to direct your questions via the usual channels. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, we do not want to hide information from you, and we aim to empower you with the correct information to be advocates for SA Navy's cause. As you are aware, the SA Navy has been subjected to years and years of underfunding by government. Although we as leadership of the Navy can understand the socio-economic prerogatives of government, we have used any and all platforms over the past number of years to focus the attention of South Africans on the financial plight of the Navy. Please allow me at this stage to give you a brief oversight of the main maritime security challenges facing our country. This is, after all, the main reason for the existence of the Navy, namely to provide maritime security of our country. The length of the South African coastline is the third longest in Africa. Our exclusive economic zone, which stretches 200 nautical miles into the sea along the mainland, also stretches around the South Indian Ocean islands of Prince Edward and Marion Island, whereas the South African land area is 1.2 million square kilometers. The combined exclusive economic zone surrounding the mainland and the islands is 1.8 million square kilometers. The size of our EEZ can potentially grow significantly based on the outcome of the continental shelf claim that has been submitted. Thus, we have a very large area to patrol. Unfortunately, having enough ships to send on patrol is not enough. The ocean is so incredibly large, and to be effective, you must deploy your ships in a specific area as a result of good intelligence that you have gathered. The only way in which you can obtain this intelligence is to have an accurate real-time picture of the vessels that are sailing in your EEZ. This is where maritime domain awareness comes in. This is a capability that has been severely neglected over the years, due largely to underfunding of the Navy. To have a proper surveillance picture of the EEZ, you must have a combination of satellite surveillance, electronic mission monitoring, long-range radars, short-range radar, maritime patrol aircraft, and drones and ships on patrol. At this point, I have to be honest by saying that the SA Navy only has a basic idea of what is happening in our EEZ at any given time. We are trying to overcome this challenge by procuring additional radar capabilities at this stage and to enter into agreements with friendly navies to have them supply us with whatever shipping monitoring information they may have. However, we are nowhere near where we have to be, and to correct it will cost billions of rands. Another factor that must be considered is not only the size of the area where we must operate, but also weather conditions and sea states with abnormal waves that prevail along our coastline. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that Cape Town is sometimes called the Cape of Storms, but believe me when I say that the weather conditions around the South Indian Ocean islands is many times worse. The winds in this area is not called the roaring 40s for nothing. A navy requires large ships to send down there to patrol. Why would the Navy want to patrol around Prince Edward and Marion Islands? Surely we are not making war with penguins. The answer to that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to our first major security threat facing our country, namely illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. We must have an adequate maritime domain awareness capability to effectively monitor the various ships around our coastline. Failure to do this will leave us vulnerable to crooks from around the world who come to our waters with impunity and steal the fish that belongs to the people of South Africa. To put this into perspective, ladies and gentlemen, there are some reports that states that the revenue lost each year to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing is more than 6 billion rands per year. This is equal to the procurement cost of 4 of the multi-mission inshore patrol vessels. I have to report to you today that due to the underfunding of the Navy over the years, we can only watch helplessly as these crooks come into our waters and steal what belongs to us. This situation is causing me sleepless nights, and it should do the same to you. Another large maritime security threat caused by underfunding of the Navy is the increase in illegal goods trafficking taking place around our coastline. This includes the trafficking of drugs, endangered animals, firearms, and ammunition. Human trafficking and human smuggling is unfortunately also on the increase. The SA Navy should be able to provide a secure barrier to prevent these illegal activities, but we simply do not have the capacity. We have also noticed recently that many of these cartels are starting to ignore our large harbors and are now basing their operations at small harbors of our country. Examples of this tendency is the 583 million rand of cocaine confiscated in Saldanha in March 2021 and the 250 million rand of drugs confiscated in Stilbaai in July this year. Another factor to consider about the requirement for a navy is the fact that about 90% by volume of everything imported and exported from the country comes via our harbors. The more unsafe it is for trade to take place, the more expensive these trade goods will become. In addition, our country also has an international obligation to conduct search and rescue operations in a vast area that stretches halfway to Brazil and all the way to Antarctica, and which includes the coastline of Angola, Namibia, South Africa, and Mozambique. Furthermore, our Navy also have an international obligation to conduct accurate hydrography of not only our coastline, but also the coastline of our neighboring countries. Hydrography is the art and science of mapping the ocean floor. Without accurate hydrography, all ships sailing along our coast will be subject to increased insurance costs, as vessels insurers do not want their ships to sail in uncharted areas. Our existing hydrographic survey vessel is nearly 50 years old and requires to be replaced. More about this later. Another recent factor to consider is the 60% increase in maritime traffic past our coastline as a result of the geopolitical tensions in the Red Sea. This has resulted in increase in maritime incidents, such as ships losing containers overboard in our rough seas, or even running aground and causing environmental challenges, such as oil spills. As the SA Navy, it is our role to educate the people of South Africa about the world beyond the beach. Unfortunately, South Africans tend to have a sea blindness and do not recognize the integral role played by the sea in their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I can continue along this vein for a long time, but suffice to say that the picture I have painted is that South Africa have clear and present maritime threats that require a properly funded, equipped, resourced, and staffed Navy. Needless to say, we have none of these things. However, this is the state of the Navy address, and I have to report to what we have been doing with money that has been allocated to us. The Navy budget has been allocated to us is around 4.3 billion rand, of which 2.7 billion rand is for personnel costs. This leaves the Navy with a balance of 1.6 billion rand to cover our operational costs. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not enough. Even if we received the full budget that we require, this budget should have been 8.5 billion rand per year. Even the 2.7 billion rand for personnel costs is only enough for 6,356 posts, but we currently structured for 9,532 posts. We thus have a personnel shortfall of 3,176 people. I want you to understand something about personnel usage in the Navy. For safety purposes, there is a minimum number of personnel that must work on a ship. This minimum seagoing standard is based on international best practices to ensure that crew of the ship can properly operate all the ship systems as required to achieve set objectives. If there are not enough people for vessel, then the vessel cannot sail. We do not compromise on safety in the SA Navy, never. However, we are approaching the situation now in some areas where specialized departments in the Navy do not have enough people, resulting in the entire ship not being able to sail. This forces us to poach personnel from other similar vessels just to be in a position to send that ship to sea. We are facing this situation currently with our submarines. As a volunteer service, the submarine squadron is also a very technical environment, and these members are highly qualified and can easily find employment outside the Navy. A concerted effort must be made to recruit more members to the submarine squadron, or we risk losing this capability. I also want to point out that there is supposed to be a healthy ratio of members working ashore to members working on ships. This ratio is normally 3:1. This allows seagoing members to rotate ashore, to undergo training, or to impart their knowledge and experience to the next generation. The support staff ashore also have to manage all the other support functions that are required to ensure the ships can deploy to sea. Navy members are highly skilled and highly qualified. If they work on board ships, these members become increasingly frustrated and leave the organization if their ships do not sail. This attrition rate of members leaving the Navy has reached alarming proportions. In the past 5 years, we have lost 1,658 members to a combination of resignations, members going on pension, and death. Comparatively, the members who entered the Navy was 1,175 over the same period. This is a shrinking of personnel numbers of 483 in only 5 years. This is the main reason why we appealed to government to allow the Defence Force to recruit more personnel. Fortunately, this resulted in 368 members who recently completed their basic military training at Saldanha on the 12th of September this year. The next year, we are looking forward to be more than 600 new recruits entering the South African Navy. Although this turnaround is good news for the Navy, I must stress, ladies and gentlemen, that it will be many years before these juniors can make a meaningful contribution to the Navy. The reason for this is simple. As we will take many years to train them up to the required standard. In order to try and shorten this training period, the Navy has decided to appeal to our friends and allies from across the world to assist in training our members. This was one of my main focuses when I traveled abroad. namely to negotiate with these countries to open the doors of their training institutions to the SA Navy. I can also report here today that the chiefs of the Cuban, Egyptian, Russian, Indian, and Chinese navies have answered with grace and open hands towards us. They have offered to train our members for free or at vastly reduced rates. The only cost we have to pay is for the members' sustenance whilst they are studying. It is our wish that these members will learn from these navies and come and plow back their newfound knowledge in our country. Please allow me at this stage to bring your attention back to our budget and the 1.6 billion rand operating budget. With this money, we have to run the Navy for a full financial year. With these funds being allocated to anything from spares to maintenance to logistics like fuel, food, and travel expenses, etc., I am not going to delve too deep into what it takes to run an organization as large as the Navy. I must admit, however, the SA Navy is still struggling to spend all of our allocated funds in a financial year. The reason for this are many, but it can be laid at the door of a convoluted and an illogical procurement system and the inability of the Armscor dockyard to function as they are supposed to. I visited many naval dockyards over the course of my career, and I can say without fear or favor that the Armscor dockyard is the least performing dockyard that I know of in the world. They simply do not produce anything that is required of them. What makes matters worse is that the SA Navy is forced to pay them about 80 million on a quarterly basis in compliance with the dockyard agreement. This totals nearly to just above or 300 million rand per annum. The Armscor dockyard has not done any meaningful work on any SA Navy ship for many years now. They simply act as a contracting agent and outsource the work to an outside company. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something here. When this company who received the tender completes the work, they do not send the invoice for payment to Armscor dockyard. No, they send this invoice to the Navy so that we must pay. Hence, we pay more than 300 million to Armscor dockyard to do the maintenance of our vessels, but they only use this money to manage administrative processes, to outsource work to the industry. The Navy thus pays twice to complete a maintenance task. The first time we pay the Armscor dockyard to outsource the task, and the second time we pay for the work itself. This is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, that I said that the Navy wants to divorce from Armscor dockyard. Unfortunately, there is a lot of resistance to this idea, but I will persevere in my belief that the SA Navy must control its own dockyard capability. If there is nothing else, let this be my legacy that I leave behind. When I visited Egyptian dockyard in Alexandria, I saw an African dockyard managed by a retired naval admiral that is capable of building frigates we had to buy in Europe. If our Egyptian friends can do this, surely we can as well. Despite the challenges that I described with the SA Navy dockyard, the fleet in Simonstown did manage to complete the maintenance of SAS Amatola and prepared her for the directed level of capability. Let me pause here, ladies and gentlemen, and discuss the situation where Amatola had to sail to Russia to attend their parade in July this year. Despite a monumental effort from the fleet, the limited time that was available did not allow the ship to be 100% ready and safe to undertake such a lengthy voyage in time to attend the main parade in St. Petersburg. It was with a heavy heart that the Navy Command Council cancelled this voyage, but we knew it was the right decision at the time. Now, It is 3 months later, and the fleet managed to repair everything on Amatola that was not 100%. She is now ready to undergo this voyage should the need arise. She just completed a lengthy coastal patrol within our own waters, and this allowed the crew to train and become a well-oiled machine. Unfortunately, Amatola is committed now to other obligations, such as the international maritime exercise with India and Brazil that starts on Monday. This will be followed by a lengthy deployment to Mozambique towards the end of the year, and other local obligations within our waters. We will assess the ship's commitments for next year, and should the opportunity present itself, she will sail to Russia for their parade in July. I also instructed the fleet to prepare for a deployment by SAS Drakensberg to Cuba and Brazil. These two countries are our strategic allies, and sending a ship to visit them will greatly aid the strong relationship with them. At this stage, there are still several challenges with SAS Drakensberg that must be overcome before she is ready for this deployment. However, I am confident that this voyage will take place in the next few months. However, I want you to realize, ladies and gentlemen, that South Africa is part of the international community. By our very nature, navies must learn to operate with each other in order to address the many maritime threats that face us. Individual navies simply cannot overcome the maritime challenges on their own. As part of government, the Navy has to interact with the international community according to the laid down guidelines and policies of our government. South Africa is a proud member of BRICS, and with the recent and future expansion of BRICS, we will continue to work together with our partners in this community. The invitation from those countries who are our friends and allies will be honored in the future. Thus, the plans are still in place to send our ships across the waters to visit countries such as Cuba, Egypt, India, China, Russia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, Kenya, France, Germany, and the United States. Our country is not at war with any of these countries, nor has our government imposed sanctions against them, nor the United Nations. We are not saying that we will visit all these countries within the next few months, but definitely within the next few years. Many of these countries have made the effort to send their ships to come and visit South Africa. After many recent trips to the Russian Federation to attend their main naval parade in July this year, I noticed some commentators complaining about the fact that the money spent on this trip could have been better utilized elsewhere within the Navy. I would like to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that as a result of me attending their naval parade in July this year, the Russian Chief of the Navy, Admiral Moisev, decided to deploy 2 of his vessels to come and attend our Navy Festival. They are here in the yard. One of these vessels, the frigate Neustrashin, will be open to the public. In the same vein, the People's Liberation Army Navy of China have sent the frigate Shushang to South Africa to exercise with us. This was as a result of my visit to China earlier in the year. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I can state here categorically that if the return of investment of me going to visit foreign navies results in them sending ships to South Africa, it will be a very good investment for the country indeed. The amount of money that these ships will spend in South Africa for resupply and refueling, coupled with the hundreds of foreign naval tourists spending their money in our coastline, in our coastal cities, will definitely boost their local economy. The South African Navy respects all navies of the world, and we also expect the same level of respect from them. The South African Navy will not be dictated by any Navy or media house, for that matter, as to who we should or should not build bridges of friendship and cooperation with. There is not a single Navy on this planet that we will not cooperate with. In that vein, we are guided by the Defense Committee agreements that our defense force have forged with many countries across the world. In light of this, the SA Navy regularly conducts the following multinational exercises. Exercise IPSAMA with Brazil and India. The 8th exercise in this series will start on Monday. Milan with India and other countries. Atlasol with Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. Good Hope with Germany. Oxide with France. Shared Accord with USA, and MOSI with China and Russia. The 3rd in this series will take place in China next year, and it is my intention to send a frigate to China to participate in this. As part of our commitment to SADC region, we will also participate in a SADC Maritime exercise later this year in the DRC. The SA Navy is in the process of also building relations with other nations as well. It is my intention that the SA Navy participate in annual security belt exercise between Russia, China, and Iran. This year we sent an observer, and during next year we'll do so again. All of these countries are our BRICS partners, and there is a great impetus for the chiefs of navies of BRICS to find ways to increase the cooperation between the member states. As such, there is a drive amongst the chiefs of BRICS countries to have a symposium to discuss matters relevant to BRICS nations. Hopefully, this symposium will be held in the next few months. Once that is held, I have volunteered for South Africa to host the inaugural BRICS naval exercise. Should my proposal be accepted by other BRICS Navy chiefs, this will see the largest gathering of foreign naval ships in South Africa for many decades, if not ever. The SA Navy is fully in support of government's initiative to support and expand the BRICS groups of nations. We are all confident that the benefits of being part of BRICS will be incredible. Whilst we are talking about international symposium and exercises, I would like to remind you that the SA Navy will be hosting the Sea Power for Africa Symposium in Cape Town from 14th to 18th of October this year. I do not want to divulge too much information at this time because I want all of you to attend the media briefing for SPAS, where you will get all the information that you may want. Needless to say, this symposium will discuss many relevant topics related to the maritime security challenges facing the African continent. I urge you to clear your diaries and come to attend with us. Please allow me to change tack at this stage and focus our attention again on the challenge of maintenance that the SA Navy is struggling with. We are fortunate that National Treasury has heeded our call and made 1.4 billion rand for the refit of our frigates and submarines. Before I continue, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to briefly explain what a refit is. Rest assured that the SA Navy knows exactly what is required to maintain our vessels. If we have money and a functioning dockyard, we will not be struggling like we are. Allow me to explain. The first level of maintenance is done by a ship's crew on board. For that, you just need spares and you can effect repairs yourself. The second level of maintenance is an assistant maintenance, period M. This is where the internal naval technical personnel based ashore at the fleet maintenance units and technical upkeep section assist with maintenance tasks on board. This is supposed to take place a very few months as the ships have sailed, and is normally done alongside. The third level of maintenance is the DD, or docking and essential defects. This involves for a ship to be taken out of the water either by means of dry dock or synchro lift. This happens each alternative year, and Armscott Dockyard is supposed to be integrally involved with this, assisted by industry. The fourth level of maintenance is a refit. There are many naval dockyards in the world who can refit their vessels. In our case, the Armscott Dockyard does not have the capacity to do a refit or a submarine refit, a frigate refit or a submarine refit, and must outsource this to industry and or original equipment manufacturers. During a refit, most of the systems on board are repaired or replaced. For instance, large mechanical components are replaced, like engines. Identified engineering changes can also be effected during a refit. This is supposed to happen every 6 to 8 years. The fifth and last level of maintenance is called the midlife upgrade, where most of the combat suit on board are replaced and or upgraded. This is supposed to take place every 15 to 20 years. Allow me to explain this easy to understand language. The ship's crew have daily, weekly, fortnight, monthly, and quarterly maintenance tasks they must complete. This is like servicing your own car. The assisted maintenance period is like taking your car to the dealer for a service. Docking and essential defects is equivalent to a minor overhaul in your car, where certain components are replaced. A refit is equivalent to a major overhaul, where most of the components are replaced. A midlife upgrade is where most of the components are upgraded and modernized. After this lesson in ship maintenance, I must point out, ladies and gentlemen, that our frigates are all 20 years old and more. By now, the lead vessel Amatola should have had 3 refits, and she should now be undergoing her midlife upgrade. Why do you have to do a midlife upgrade? The answer is simple: because the weapon system on board were designed and procured in the late 90s. Most of these systems are now beyond economic repair or obsolete, or are no longer being manufactured. They are also not performing according to the specifications that they were acquired for. Warfare has evolved since the 1990s, especially with the rapid rise in the use of and sophistication of drones as methods of attack, to give just one example. Unfortunately, in the South African Navy, the only frigate that had a refit was SAS Amatola. This is the reason why she is now the only operational frigate. The other 3 frigates have never been refitted. Fortunately, SAS Sandwana is currently undergoing a refit in Durban, which is expected to take about 2 years. Once she is refitted, she will be followed by SAS Spincorp and SAS Mindy. Please remember, ladies and gentlemen, once all the frigates have been refitted, they must all undergo their midlife upgrades in order for them to be able to operate as warships for the next 20 years. Please understand the difference between a refit and midlife upgrade, as this is very important. The SA Navy registered projects to complete midlife upgrades for both the frigates and submarines many years ago. Project signed, the midlife upgrade for the frigates should have started in the financial year 16-17 and should have been completed last year at a cost of 6.2 billion rand. Project Napoleon, the midlife upgrade for submarines, should have started in the financial year 2021-2022 and be completed by the FINIA 28-29 at the cost of 3.8 billion. Unfortunately, the funding for these projects was cancelled, not by the South African Navy. Pertaining to the submarines, we find ourselves in a very dire situation. The only submarine that had a partial refit is SS Mantatisi. The other two submarines have never had a refit, which is why they are not sailing currently. With our dockyard not able to refit a submarine, we are waiting for AMSCO to announce who their refit partner for the submarines will be. Only once this is announced will the 3 submarines be refitted. The impact of not doing the refits and midlife upgrades of the frigates and submarines are that these vessels are busy deteriorating alongside. Due to the severe shortage in spares, there is an ever-increasing cannibalization of spares between vessels to keep single vessels minimally operational. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I was the Deputy Project Officer of Project Wills, which was the project that acquired the submarines from Germany. Government back then made a strategic error by not purchasing the sufficient spares for the submarines and frigates to last them across their lifetime. This is called true life support. The international best practice is that the true life support component of a project acquisition make up 70% of the total cost, with the actual vessel cost making plus minus 30%. The error made by government was to reverse this figure, namely to have the actual vessel costing at 70% and the true life support at 30% of the project cost. The result of this is that the spares for these vessels only lasted 2 to 4 years at most, and our depots actually do not have any spares to sustain these frigates and submarines. The idea at the time was that the spares will be brought through the normal procurement processes. Unfortunately, the SA Navy leadership at the time agreed to government's proposal to spend most of the funding on the actual cost of the vessel. I think no one could foresee how difficult the government procurement process would become and manage. The challenge on the ground now is that although we order the spares in the beginning of a financial year, in most instances those spares are not delivered before the financial year closes. In some instances, it takes years to be delivered due to geopolitical challenges from the original equipment manufacturers. This situation contributes greatly to the maintenance backlog of our vessels. The SA Navy is grateful for the allocation of the 1.4 billion rand from National Treasury to refit our vessels. Should AMSCO dockyard have been functioning properly, this money may have been sufficient to refit a number of vessels. However, with the refits being outsourced to private industry, we hope that this will be sufficient to refit 1 frigate and 1 submarine. We are confident, however, the National Treasury will fund the refits of the other frigates and submarines as well. Focusing now on the naval projects, I am pleased to report that the 3rd multi-mission inshore patrol vessel will be received by the Navy before the end of the year. The other 2 vessels are undergoing their operational test and evaluation phase to determine how they will integrate into the fleet. As these vessels are a complete new class of vessels, these delays are to be expected. The hydrography survey vessel being built in Durban is also progressing steadily. These new ships will go a long way to address some of the challenges that the SA Navy is experiencing in deploying ships to sea. However, ladies and gentlemen, I started this address by outlining the long coastline and large exclusive economic zone that the Navy must cover. Our blueprint force design, which determines how many vessels we need to effectively secure maritime defense, lays this out very clearly. The South African Navy must have at least 15 offshore patrol vessels, with 15 inshore patrol vessels, 3 combat support ships, 12 frigates, 4 submarines, 2 sea lift vessels, 1 landing helicopter dock vessel, 2 hydrographic survey vessels, 5 autonomous underwater vessels, 4 autonomous survey vessels, 2 mine clearance systems, 36 harbor patrol boats, 20 boarding boats, 12 riverine boats, 6 operational diving teams, and 5 reaction force components. These capabilities are the minimum that the Navy must have to provide an adequate maritime security for our country. Failure to provide this and to provide adequate funds to equip and staff these capabilities, as well as the required support structures ashore, will result in severe gaps in our country's maritime security. Due to the financial constraints that the Navy is subjected to, we have opened negotiations with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, specifically the Council on Geosciences, to investigate the possibility of funding the procurement of the second hydrographic survey vessel, allowing the SA Navy to operate it on their behalf. We have to find creative ways to still achieve our strategic objectives by cooperating with other government departments. Whilst talking about cooperating with other government departments, please allow me to give you an update about the planned move of our naval base in Durban to Richards Bay. As this move was requested from us by Transnet National Ports Authority in order to fund their port expansion in Durban, there are some infrastructure challenges in Durban that we must address in the short to medium term. Not knowing if we will still make use of this space in the next few years makes it difficult to commit funding to improve the base infrastructure in Durban. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I will call a halt to this State of the Nation address at this stage. I hope that you have a bit more insight into what is taking place in the Navy, and I also feel a bit more confident that the leadership of the Navy knows what is required to be done. Our members are well-trained, skilled, and dedicated patriots. We sacrifice a lot to ensure that our country's maritime security is ensured. The main reason why this is not always possible is large due to severe shortage of funding. Should this be addressed, I am confident that you will have a Navy that you can be proud of, with many ships sailing and doing what is expected of them. To conclude, please allow me to give you a short insight into what the people of Cape Town can expect for this Navy Festival. As you heard previously, we have one foreign vessel from Russia open to the public during the festival. We will also have most of the South African Navy ships, including a submarine, open to the public. There will be an arena activities, tug rides, anti-piracy displays, and other static displays. The largest part of the dockyard will be open to the public, and we urge all members to make their way down to Simonstown for this weekend. I want to emphasize that entrance to the Navy Festival is free of charge, and all activities are free of charge as well. After this media briefing, we will be allowing you to take a walk around the festival area in order to get some footage of what the Navy Festival entails. Later today, there will be a Navy pulling regatta, which is a traditional race of whaling boats between various ships and units. This will be held in the harbor. Tomorrow morning at 9, we will be celebrating the Right of Entry Parade in Simonstown. The times that the festival will be open is 10 to 1800 on Saturday and Sunday. Due to the fact that the SA Navy is environmentally conscious, there will be no night shoot during this festival, as it is currently a whaling season. On Sunday, there will be a remembrance service for all those SA Navy members who have passed away in the line of duty. The Navy Festival will conclude with a retreat ceremony on Sunday afternoon at 1700. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you again for making the time to come and engage with the Navy this morning. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we are looking forward to lots of positive coverage of this event. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause to the Chief of the South African Navy. The key takeaway from this briefing is that the Navy is ready to defend the maritime interest of our country. We are facing a challenge, however, due to our dwindling budget. However, the Navy is still capable of honoring its mandate of being the people's Navy and to be unchallenged at sea. We are now entering a question and answer session. So to the media that is available here and present here, we are requesting that you identify yourself by giving us your name and the name of the organization where you come from. And the panel is here and is ready to answer your question. Is there any media here? Thank you, ma'am. Please identify yourself and your organization. There's a mic that is going to come through.
When the Navy Chief was making the address, you made mention of the fact that you're not going to be dictated by the media or anyone in the job that you're doing. My question is related to the Russian vessel that is going to be open for public viewing. What's the Navy's, aren't you having any concerns about the global tensions between Russia and Ukraine with this Russian vessel now here? Is it not gonna spoil or cause controversy in this year's festival? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll take another question. Is there any other question? Okay. In the absence of any question, I'll give the Chief to respond.
Thanks. Is this thing on?
Yes, still on.
Oh.
Still.
Thanks, Lulama, for this question. South Africa is the member of the United Nations, and we are guided by our international relations protocols. As things stand, the United Nations has not imposed, or the General Assembly has not imposed any sanctions against the Russian Federation. We are mindful of the conflict that is taking place in the Russian Federation, and thus having the United Nations not imposed any sanctions to the Russian Federation, and Russia being a member of BRICS, and South Africa itself having not imposed any sanctions against Russia, we don't see any reason why we cannot continue building the bridges of cooperation and friendship with the Russian Federation. We will continue in this up until we are dictated otherwise by the national government in terms of our international relations policy, as well as the stance taken by the United Nations General Assembly on this matter. Thank you.
Lola, I'm seeing that you're the only one here. Is there a follow-up question? Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, ENCA, please identify yourself.
Good morning, sir. I'm Kevin Grant from ENCA. I just want to know from the Vice Admiral, basic, you've highlighted a number of issues and the impact of is it on? There you go. You highlighted a number of the impact of the financial constraints. If a South African hearing what you've said and what we're going to be reporting on, is there a reason for concern from them? And if you can just maybe reiterate, in the presence of these financial troubles, can the Navy say that they're still performing their duties in protecting the country? Thank you.
I don't want to monopolize the media interview because we're sitting here as a panel, so I'll allow my deputy to speak on this one.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was on its own.
Now it's on. Okay. Thank you, Chief of the Navy, for allowing me the opportunity to respond to the question raised by Given Grant from ENCA. I must indicate or reiterate what has been said by the Chief of the Navy, that the financial constraints limits indeed the Navy to achieve its set objectives. But within the Navy leadership, we are trying so hard under the circumstances to still manage to make good of the mandate that we are given through the Constitution. One of the initiatives that we decided to embark on when we realized that we cannot spend as much hours as we would like at sea, but what becomes important therefore for us is to ensure that we have eyes through the Maritime Domain Awareness Centers, so then that we use the available platforms to react to any activity that is suspicious. So when you have the eyes, then the limited resources that you have in terms of available platforms, then we use them as a reaction capability to respond to issues that become of interest to the South African Navy through the eyes that we employ and the picture that we get through our Maritime Domain Awareness Centers. So indeed, we are still in a position to ensure that our oceans are policed and are governed properly. Thank you very much.
Lulama, you may ask a question.
It's a follow-up from my colleague about the underfunding. Firstly, do you have any incidents that have happened? Because on the main address, the chief Navy indicated that you're not taking any chances when you go to sea. You need to have a full staff complement. besides that, are there any incidents that have happened that you would attribute them to underfunding? And secondly, the festival, if I heard it correctly, it wasn't held for some time. What was the reason for that? Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the underfunding has got detrimental effects on the operations of the Navy. The South African Navy has an area of responsibility for search and rescue and hydrography. There are incidents where we could not mobilize when required to conduct search and rescue. We have outstanding hydrographic work that needs to be conducted. For instance, had the hydrographic vessel that is being currently built in Durban been funded earlier than what happened, we would have managed to reach or obtain our hydrographic objectives. So this underfunding has a very negative and a severe impact on naval operations and specifically on national security. Thank you.
Lulam, I know that you need also interviews in Isikosa. The chief and the panel will be made available to give those exclusive interviews. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our sessions today. So it's been an honor. Thanks to the members of the Navy, of the media, and the panelists that are here. So now we are finally concluding. And oh, sorry, apologies. There's a second question. Okay, the Navy Festival one. There was a question, but Ululama seems not to be satisfied. Just on the Navy Festival.
Why did you?
Why we were underfunded for the Navy Festival? It was not held. Why it was not held?
We can also attribute that to the state of the dockyard, as the Chief of Navy has mentioned. We had interactions with the city of Cape Town because the Navy Festival is a public event. There are certain regulations, especially in terms of occupational health and safety, that the yard had to be brought into those standards. So for those reasons, we had to stop so that we can revamp the facility so that we comply with the regulations of the city, and also to improve the standard of the yard for the benefit of the Navy. The other reason was the pandemic, Corona, also had an effect on the Navy Festival, could impose. So everything, I think the break was a blessing in disguise so that we can look back and see what went wrong before. Now, as you can see, you will see over the weekend, there's much improvement and we're looking forward to making it better in the future. I thank you. Or the councillor would like to add.
Yeah, so to clarify, the city and the Navy have to work together on this. There are regulations, and I remember one year when the FOF and the fire chief had a good fight at the gate there, and the officials are required to enforce certain regulations. There's an Events Act. The city had an event at I think the stadium that one year where somebody died because the scaffolding collapsed at a rock concert, and fortunately for us, the city had done everything within the reason. So there is an Events Act and there are very regulations which need to be complied with. And we just want to get the job done, but the officials will make sure that we are complying with the law and it makes it very onerous. It makes it very difficult. There's a lot more PTV. This year, we started a long time ago because we really focused on this with the mayor's office, support of the mayor's office. We work intensively with the events office to make sure that this event happens, because it's not something that we could do in the old days. In the old days, the dockyard concert, we just went and had it in the dockyard. And they would not allow us to do that because of the evacuation procedure. So there are regulations which we need to comply with in order for the safety of the people coming here, which make it a lot more work than it was before. But we are working closely together now, hence the city has provided a lot of services to make sure that we are compliant with what the law requires. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing. I've said in my speech that safety is of critical importance to the South African Navy. And we are not at any stage sending ships to sea if we are not satisfied that it has passed all the safety drills. Same as this festival. We treat it as a sailing ship, and we are concerned about the thousands and thousands of South Africans that will be in our attending our Navy festival. So we have to make sure that all those safety aspects are actually attended to in cooperation with the city of Cape Town. We don't regret as the South African Navy that in the past 7 years we could not host this exercise, this festival. We take it as a learning curve, and now we actually, through the city, as the Councillor said, and Chief Director of Maritime Strategy also said, that we are now in the process of actually improving all to make sure that all these safety aspects are attended to. Next year, you will be here. We're not going to have another 7-year break. Next year, the Navy Festival is going to continue, and you are most welcome, and the entire South African public. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our session. We are now going to enjoy our sumptuous breakfast. So, breakfast is served. We are to follow the necessary protocol of the Navy, where we start with Umfundisi to pray for us to bless our food. Oh, sorry, I didn't take note of it. So, breakfast is served. Follow the protocol as per Navy tradition, the executive, and then others will follow. But afterwards, to the members of the media, the chief is available for interviews, exclusive. I know you want to the one-on-one. Thank you.
Admiral, when the chief came,